Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Lakeesha Stewart, Executive Director of I Raise Girls and Boys International. I so want to thank you for joining us today, June 8th, for another episode of the Fireside Chat. Unfortunately, today our CEO is having a little bit of a power outage in the area where she is and unable to join us today. So we wish her and everybody in the area where she is good luck with the power, but we are so glad that we can still continue, that we have you all here with us today, and that we have a fabulous guest with us as well. And I want to just give her an introduction because she definitely deserves that. We're going to be talking about a very important topic, which is ending the cycle of violence. As you know, our communities are often wrapped with just stories upon stories of children dying, of people being shot, birthday parties, people shooting. There is so much going on in the world today. People safe to ride the subway in New York City. It's very real what today, and there's so much that needs to be done, and that we hope gets done in terms of gun control and gun violence. Uh, but we have to talk. There's no way to bring about that today is part of that solution. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She first director of the Department of Health in the city of Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey native, working as a violence interpreter, a coach agent here at ICE to healing. She has an LMSW LLC, corrected, and she came back after college, committed to working in the community that she came from, which we love as well. We have to give. Lakeesha is a community trauma, domestic violence, and community violence. And we just want to really, really celebrate her today and the great work that she is doing. Of the newer, her leadership, that organization thrived as a she educated the community on how to and assisted family and assist with mediate interrupting potential violence. Much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There isn't enough that I can say about
Thank
you
you.
because
There isn't enough that I can say about you because
what you're doing is
what you're
fantastic
doing is
work. But I do have a
fantastic
few
work. But I do have a
questions
few questions
I want you to share with
I
our
want you to
audience.
share with our audience.
So I'm
So
curious.
I'm just
One topic
curious.
that's been
One
out there
topic
when it
that's
came
been out
to
there when it came to
defunding the police, right? That was
defunding the
one thing that
police, right?
came
That
up
was one thing that
after
came up
the shooting of
after
George
the
Floyd,
shooting of
the death of George
The
Floyd
death of George Floyd
back in 2020.
back in
So I wanted to
2020.
ask you,
So I wanted to ask
really, what
you,
impact
really,
has
what impact
reallocating
has
funds from the
reallocating
police
funds from the
or
police
community-based
or
public safety
community-based
actually
public
have?
safety actually have?
So, just as you said, the Office of Violence Prevention and Trauma Recovery was created in 2020 in the wake of the George Floyd protests. And there was a rallying cry nationally around defunding of the police. And so the city of Newark reallocated 5% of its police department's budget to be able to create the Office of Violence Prevention, because we know that law enforcement can't do this work alone. And so the Office of Violence Prevention was invested in, because that's the issue that we have, that many of our programs are not invested in, and we're always looking for ways to try to fund these initiatives. And so public safety isn't just the work of the police, or it isn't just the responsibility of law enforcement, but community as well. So we created a community-based public safety approach, which involves social workers and outreach workers and victim advocates and case managers, to be able to show up and work side by side with law enforcement, because they're not trained to be able to handle mental health issues, quality of life issues. Um, and so this office was created, and we were also given a police precinct building to be able to do our work out of. And so there wasn't just a financial investment, there was also a real estate investment, because so many organizations don't have a place to work out of. And so it also was transformational, because this is the building that our 67 rebellion sparked out of, where police brutality was taking place. And so a place where people were once being arrested and police brutality was once a staple is now a place of hope and healing, that people can come and get help and get resources. And so a lot of times when people are victims of violence and crime, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do. They don't have any help or resources. And so now there's a place that they can just stop in and say, hey, I just need to talk to someone. Or we destigmatize the social workers, or therapy, that sort of thing, and around trauma and mental health. And so the reallocation is impactful, because it helps us to be able to have resources and have things funded just in a different way, and to see that law enforcement and public safety dollars can be repurposed for other things. And it's not always for equipment and high militarization of equipment and more officers and more policing, because more policing doesn't necessarily mean more safety in the community.
Love that.
I absolutely love that. I love that there is a real true
between the police
partnership
department
between the police
community.
department and the community.
Do feel
Absolutely.
like sometimes that
I do feel
divide
like
where
sometimes there is
feel
that
like
divide
the police
where
are over
people
there,
feel like the police are over
community is
there,
over
the
here,
community is
they're
over
providing
here,
oversight,
they're there, they're providing
but at the
oversight,
same time, they're
but
not
at the same time, they're
really
not
part of the community.
really
They're not
part of the community. They're not
community
really
members.
engaged with community members.
And so this really seems
And so
like
this really seems like
kind of
they
took up the
kind
mantle
of took up
and
the
said, "We hear
mantle
you. We
and said, we hear you, we
understanding what the
understand you,
community is
we
needing,
understanding what the
and so
community
we
is
are on
needing.
board. We're
And
on
so
board
we
with
are on
doing this
board.
process,
We're on board with
reallocating this
doing
portion
this
of funds
process, reallocating this portion of funds
so that the community
so
is
that
getting what
the
it needs,
community
and that
is
there's
getting what
actually
it
working
needs,
together
and that
between
there's
the
actually
police
working
and
together
the
between the
community."
police and the community.
Absolutely. But that wasn't just, it comes from leadership, right? The mayor has to say, this is what I want to see in our city. The police director or the police chief has to say, this is what is necessary. So I come from a background of activism. And so for maybe 5 or 10 years, 10, 15 years before the Office of Violence Prevention was created, there was that anti-violence coalition and a group of people who were fed up with the violence in the community, who were protesting and rallying against the violence in the community. And they went all over the city. Everywhere violence took place, they did a rally and a protest for 155 weeks in a row. Rain, sleet, snow, sunshine, to say, we are tired of the violence in our community. We know who's doing the violence in our community. We're responsible. The community has a response. And we also want to be involved, but we don't trust law enforcement. And so that trust with law enforcement was the divide. But ultimately, there was a movement happening. There was people already on the ground mobilizing and organizing around violence prevention before this Office of Violence Prevention. And ultimately, one of the demands was, we want violence declared a public health issue. And so when you declare things a public health issue, then you have to allocate resources to it. And so when you do that, then now you have some traction, and now you start to see some things happen. But without resources, without funding, and without a voice, a community voice, then it continues to be business as usual. So it took every piece to come together. It took the community, it took organizing, mobilizing,
Absolutely.
for us to get a mayor.
Absolutely.
that understood the problem, to get a police director that understood we got to rebuild trust, to get a community person to lead it. All of those things matter. And that's what the impact is. The relationship to community matters when you have leadership working together.
Exactly what is
Amazing.
needed
That is
on so
exactly
many
what is needed
levels, and
on so many different
what
levels. And I think that's
uh,
what
a lot of people fail
a
to
lot of
realize,
people fail to
that
realize
even
that even,
I can't hear. I'm sorry. Can you hear
so
me?
I apologize. Lakeisha, are you hearing me?
I can hear you.
Okay, technology. I tell you, just for where things are going. But I'm going to keep my off for now, just to see if that helps a little bit with the connection. But I definitely wanted to ask you another question. Um, so, based on your work in addressing violence and advocating for the reduction of violence, what strategies or approaches have you found actually to be most effective in kind of breaking that cycle of violence within the communities?
So we have an increase in crime and violence that's happening nationally, especially youth violence, domestic violence. Last year we had a significant reduction, and this year's up. But ultimately, what we found is that working together and having the community based approach, um, with the public safety, with health, right? So putting health, public safety, and community based organizations together is helpful, plus an investment. So we have a branch of the Office of Violence Prevention, called the Brick City Peace Collective. And that collective hosts about 18 to 20 organizations that work collectively, to be able to provide services and throughout the community. And so that collaboration and partnership is key, because we need our people to be working together versus in silos. Everyone has a program, everyone has different alternatives, different approaches. But if we're not working together, then we find that it's not effective. And so we have a collective that brings all the organizations together for accountability, for collaboration, for partnership, to report out, for support. And we find that that's impactful when we're all working together. We all know what's going on. We're all looking to be funded. It's not competition. No one is in competition with each other over funding. And so we're finding that that's impactful, where we meet on a monthly basis. We're strategizing together. We're pulling together strategies together. We are mobilizing together. We are coming up with ideas and being able to have access to the mayor, have access to the police director. We're responding to things in the community together. The community see us. We go and knock on doors. After shootings, robberies, different things happen, we go and we do wellness checks on the community. And ultimately, it's part of our strategic plan. And the strategic plan says that we want to support communities to have an active role in creating public safety. When people feel heard, then they're more likely to support and buy into what it is that you have. We are mobilizing community and law enforcement to focus on the hot spots. So we have hot spots in the neighborhood where we know that there are things happening over and over and over again. And so we are concentrating the resources into those areas directly. So they say that a small percentage of the community experiences the most amount of the violence. Everyone don't experience it. Every part of the city don't experience it. Only our South Ward, our West Ward, some parts of our Central Ward. But the East and the North Ward don't experience it as much. So we don't need to put all of our resources everywhere. You want to concentrate your resources. And you want to get your business owners involved, and you want to get your community, your hospitals, your schools. Everyone has to be involved. And we are shifting the culture to think about trust, healing, and resilience, right? We know that trust hasn't been a big thing, especially in Black and Brown communities, with systems and with law enforcement. So we're trying to shift the culture to think about how we can reimagine public safety, how we can build trust, but ultimately how we can heal our communities, because for so long, there's been so much trauma. And so we haven't done enough healing work. Ultimately, doing much of our just reactionary work and not being proactive around how we heal our communities, and destigmatizing trauma and therapy in our community, mental health, right? And resilience. Our communities are resilient. Our people are resilient, right? And we have to empower them to be resilient, right? And so we have a role in all of these things. And then we're investing in the capacity of the people that's working in violence prevention. This year, I put out $16 million for community-based organizations to be able to apply for, so that we can fund their work. Last year, I put out $1 million for organizations to be able to fund their work. So we have to invest in the capacity of the people and believe that they can do this. My office is a clearinghouse. My office is not supposed to stop crime and violence. That's not my job. But my job is to put resources and alternatives out there so that people have can prevent violence and crime. And so that we know that different things, right? Financial and poverty is a contributor factor, right? People don't have basic needs: food, clothing, shelter, transportation. How do we meet people's basic needs? Housing, homelessness is a huge issue. Mental health is a huge issue in our communities. And we have to invest in that. And so We have been advocating for the federal government to put money into violence prevention work for community based, not just keeping police and putting all the money into policing. That's not the answer. Right. And so our state government,
That's
federal
right.
government, county government, and our city government, we have to invest in the capacity of our people and not just law enforcement and not just policing. We don't need more aggressive policing. That's not what we need.
Lakeisha, you stated so many different things, so many different strategies, so many different approaches. And I feel like every single one of them is what leads to the success that is happening over there in Newark. One thing that you mentioned was trust, and really the community's trust in the systems that are in place. And I think it is so important, so valuable when you're bringing people to the table. So often we have been left out of the rooms, where decisions are being
Right.
made. We haven't been invited to the table to even say, like you said, we know we're in the community. We know where the violence is predominantly taking place. We can point out like who's who on the corner,
Right.
and things like that,
Absolutely.
where people may not feel comfortable saying it out loud, but with those within the community know who's in the community, and they know who's doing what. So when you leave those voices out of the
Right.
room, when you don't invite those people to the table, you are missing a huge piece of what can impact real change and really affect those processes. So I'm so glad that it was like welcoming people in.
Right.
It is so important that community members feel like they have a part. They feel like they have a say. They feel like someone is listening. So it's great that, look, I was going to ask you, you mentioned, having the mayor's ear and the police department's ear. How did you all achieve that? Like, how did you get that connection? That is the mayor to even, vocalize some of these concerns.
So the mayor was an activist. He was out in the streets with us when we were doing rallies every week. He was the one who started to make and put out text messages for people to come out into the neighborhood, into the community. When there was a woman by the name of Lakeesha Eure that was shot and killed on one of our streets, and there was no outrage. And so there was an increase in women and children being shot and killed in the city years ago, and people were just going business as usual. And so Ras Baraka, he wasn't the mayor at that time, but he was an activist. He was a school principal. And then he later became a city council member. But he just sent a text message for people to come out, and they started to congregate on different neighborhoods where violence was taking place. And it then became a movement where they would shut down the traffic and block the traffic and put up yellow tape just like the police would do. And the attitude was a life was interrupted here, and we're not going to go business as usual, because the more we go business as usual, the more the people who are perpetrating this continues to go business as usual. And so there has to be outrage around this. The buses are going to stop. The cars can't come through. I'm
Hmm.
sorry, Miss Williams, you're going to be late for work today, but today we need to talk about, what's happening in the community. And Miss Williams, it was your grandson,
Hmm.
right? And so
Hmm.
let's have a real conversation. And so we would block the traffic. We would take a speaker out there, and we developed some demands around what we wanted. And so we wasn't just out there fussing and making noise, but some real change, some real policy changes. And so every week that we did that, he would come and he would speak, which gave him a platform to help him run for city council and then for the mayor's office. So he knew what the demands were from being a part of the street organizing. So once he got into office, he was held accountable for those things, those demands that we
That
ultimately had in the streets.
that's amazing, and look, that needs to be replicated everywhere, really, right?
Mhm.
And that's one thing that we also need to do as a community, is that we love when the politicians come around. We love when they are on the campaign trail and they're out there in front of the train station and, at events, and, coming out to the meetings in the churches, and they're saying what their hopes are and what their goals are and what they intend to do. But once they get in that seat, it is definitely up to that same community, those same church members, the same folks that were riding the subway, to actually go and hold them accountable. Like you said,
Absolutely.
this is what you said you were going to do, and now we want to see. So we want to see that happen, and even what can we do as the community?
Right.
What can we do to help impact that change? And another thing that you mentioned, Lakeesha, which I thought was so critical, was
Yeah.
investment into community, and not just the police side, but
Right.
investment into the services that will actually change lives from the inside out. Investing in, the workforce and jobs, investing in business development, investing in our schools and our libraries. So valuable. Paying those people that are doing
Yes.
that work, paying the
Certainly.
social workers, paying the educators, really showing that you value what they do, and the importance of the work that they're doing. So we definitely want to encourage all of the mayors and even the governors out there to recognize, where those dollars could potentially be reallocated from one pot to another, to really see it and help the communities that they are serving. Um,
Yes.
so I definitely want to see that. So just to switch the topic a little bit, this month is actually men's health month. So I know you probably do a little bit of work around men's mental health. So could you share a bit about how you support men's mental health in your role?
So we support men's mental health in my role, by having different types of alternatives to therapy, if you will. Right. So we have different programs and different workshops and different partners that we work with that prioritizes mental health. So the men in my department that work for me, who are my case managers, my outreach workers, some of them are formerly incarcerated, justice impacted, right? And when they say they need a mental health day, then I let them have those mental health days. There's a trauma to trust training that we have with law enforcement and community, but I specifically make sure that our men are in those to learn about different types of trauma, so that they can identify their own trauma and then be able to say what it is that they need. We have a trauma recovery center. We have 4 in the city of Newark at the University Hospital. Newark Community Street Team has one. An organization called The Hub, Help Us Become Better, and Office of Violence Prevention. So we have trauma recovery centers where people can just walk in and get the services that they need. We put out literature around mental health for our men. We did a closed door meeting with some of our men that are leaders in the community, our neighborhood guys. And we did a check in with them because there's been a lot going on, and asking them how you feeling. And there were tears.
Mhm.
And to
Wow.
see men who are the ones in our community who may have, been perpetuating some of this stuff, to say we need therapy, right, was major to hear. Can you bring some therapists into the backyard meetings, or can you bring the therapists on the block with us? Right? Before you would get chased off the block. But now they're asking for that. And so that's some of the ways that we're supporting men's mental health. And we have, in June is also Gun Violence Awareness Month. And so we're doing several initiatives around gun violence awareness, mental health awareness, and ultimately alternatives, and allowing our people to know that there are resources out there. You don't have to suffer in silence. You don't have to be without anything, because the resources are here. We just don't know how to access them. You just don't hear about them. So we're destigmatizing mental health for men and making it popular and making it something that's normal, for our men in our communities.
That is amazing. Yeah, so we really need to support our men folk out here, right?
Hmm.
Because there's a lot that is a challenge, for them, to them, even, systemically, historically. And so we want to see them excel as much as we can. And I love that there are and that focuses specifically on their needs, because there are things that you can do for, the community as a whole and everyone as a whole. But each sometimes you have to break it down, to really
Right.
hone on groups and what is affecting them, address those needs specifically. I'm just curious, where can they go? You mentioned so many different programs. Is there like a central website or someplace where people can visit to find out about all of these different programs?
So in the city of Newark, we have at all of our police precincts, we have a social worker that's there. And so for every 10 police officers that get hired on the force, I get to hire one social worker. And so we have one in each precinct. And so if people wanted to stop by the precincts, they can always see someone at the precinct. If they don't want to talk to law enforcement, they have an alternative to speak to a social worker. If they wanted to find out where things are, you can look on our city's website, City of Newark website. um, I'm not sure the site, but City of Newark's website have upcoming events, different things that's going on in the departments. Um, the Office of Violence Prevention is located at 10 17th Avenue in the City of Newark. Again, that's the former First Precinct Police Department, but is now the Violence Prevention Office. And they have bulletin boards up and they have resource tables up. And we have our information is located on the city's website as well.
Okay, thank you for sharing that information. And I'm curious, I know just a little side question, all the wonderful things that are going on there in Newark that, you know, office did, the office of prevention. I'm just curious if, other, and other communities wanted to, what do you think is a starting point for them to make those connections, like you said, the police department, and bringing about some of those types of initiatives?
So there are several cities that have offices of violence preventions or neighborhood services or neighborhood offices around violence prevention. And so I would say if cities wanted to get started, I would say just start within your community, right? Have a meeting with your mayor, have a meeting with your police director, identify who those people are, and be able to your city council members as well, right? All politics is local in terms of your local people. And have a conversation with them around we need to connect community,
Mm-hmm.
city, and city government together. You can't do it without one versus the other, right? So community has to be at the center and they have to be at the table, law enforcement and local government, because everything starts from the top and from the bottom. So we want to meet the bottom, which is our grassroots and our community in the middle, and then our top down. And we meet in the middle and we say, listen, these are the things we need to be able to invest in our community around public safety. We want community based public safety. We want equity, like you said, right? We want access to information and data, right? Because most of the work that we do is data informed. And so,
Yeah.
where do we get our data from? Who shares data with us? And law enforcement in the past has not wanted to share data, but now they do. Now they can tell you they share out their crime reports or they did daily the crime stats, or they'll tell you where things are happening at. And so we just have to ask for it. And so I would say to start with a community meeting or a town hall meeting, to just come up to a meeting of the minds to say, we all agree that violence is an issue in our community. And we all want to be a part of stopping the violence in our community and being a part of the investment that's taking place. And I would say that's how you start. On the city website and in my office, I created a strategic plan. That's a basic, is a document that's shared, that's public, and just read through the strategic plan and see if there's some things you can pull from it. Um, and I would say get your community person that people trust first, and be able to have a conversation with law enforcement and with with city government.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for those tips. I definitely encourage, we have so many here in New York, so many community boards in New York City, and I encourage each of them to
Right.
get together, get their membership together, the communities together, and have these conversations, have the hard conversations about what's going on in your neighborhood, and see, again, forming that collective internally of what do you want to do, what do you, how do you want to see change happen, and then taking those roads to connect to the right people. So definitely out there, start having those conversations. Lakeisha, I just have one more question for you, because as an LCSW, and within your current role within violence prevention, I'm sure you have seen, heard, and experienced many, many things, with clients, with community members. So I just have to ask you, given your experience working with the at-risk populations, including those that have been affected by homelessness, incarceration, mental health disorders, substance abuse, how do you yourself kind of maintain your own emotional well-being and resilience while still being able to do what you do and address these challenges faced by other individuals?
So it's tough, right? Because this work is a personal work, right? And when you do work that you love and it's your passion, then it's not a job. But once it becomes your
Yes.
job, right, then it is a job because at a higher level, I'm expected to perform even on days that I don't feel like it. Expected to be at meetings and in the office and everywhere, even when I don't feel like it. And you have to show up for families when they can't show up for themselves, and you have to be able to hold information, and you have to be able to be trusted. And so there's so many hats that you have to wear, and people don't always understand your role. um, and in some communities, social workers are still not accepted, right? So still being able to be credible, because they still look at social workers as people who break up families or people who
Right.
take your children away. And so you need to be able to navigate that, and be able to say, no, social workers are people who solve problems, right? They're the people who, when no one else knows what to do, we can figure it out, or we could show up. And so it is tough because it is multifaceted, and I've learned to be able to manage some of my emotions and all of those things. But self care is a real place. I try to in the mornings take 1 hour in the morning to just ground myself. Um, and when you're dealing with so many different energies, then you just have to do things a little bit more traditional, non-traditional. You have to pray a little harder. You have to carry a little bit more crystals and stones. You have to have chakras around your neck, right? You have to have beads on. So just different things. If you burn sage or Palo Santo, whatever your practices are that helps you to stay grounded, then you do those things. And so my happy place is eating crabs on Friday nights. It helps
Woo!
me. It makes my world all right, right? So just
With the crab boil, I hear you.
yes. So just practical things of being able to just talk to your friends or call somebody and be able to vent to, and having a safe haven and a safe place to be able to do that. So those are my ways of coping and staying sane, in those days when sanity is just not even possible sometimes. So that's
Oh,
how
yeah.
I manage.
Well, that is wonderful. Those are all great and excellent things that you're doing. Because look, we're just looking at you today, and you seem so polished and calm and relaxed. And so, look, if we can do what you do and have that same look, I am all for it. So, look, I will make sure tomorrow to go out and get my crab boil.
Yes, crabs on Friday is it. But other people do
That's
things
right.
right. Reading helps people, listening to music, taking a walk, exercising. I have a dog, so he sometimes is my therapy. So whatever those things are, I encourage people to really take the time and do it, and don't allow work to consume so much of you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I said one thing that I try to do from time to time, I don't do it as often as I should, but I'm going to try to get better at it, is actually just being in silence. Sometimes just no television, no book, no work, no
Right.
phone call. just to be alone with your thoughts,
Right.
to see what comes up in your brain, right? See where your imagination takes you. And there's no telling, what ideas
Right.
can actually be sparked when you just sit in the silence and give yourself an opportunity to focus on nothing
Right.
and see all of the somethings that come in there. I definitely want to connected stay connected to those things bring you joy. It is so important in these times. uh, it is difficult sometimes to find where you get your next sane moment. You are
Yeah,
doing you can,
certainly.
right, keep yourself grounded so that you can actually do the same for your family, your friends, and your community. So I encourage everybody. Lakeisha, I thank you so much for being with us today. It is such a
Thank
pleasure.
you for
I know we
having
had
me.
our
Thank
technical
you.
difficulties right in the beginning, but I think cutting off my video kind of helped a lot, and we were able to get through. So I really want to thank everyone. Thank you so much to those who got to listen to us today. We really hope you enjoyed maybe having a little meal during lunch and just having that nice working moment to sit here and be with us. Please remember to share this with your network, family, and friends to amplify this conversation. It's so important and elevate current socio-political issues. And if you like our fireside chats, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, I Raise Girls and Boys. Uh, Follow Shaniqua Moore's page. Shaniqua Moore is, of course, our regular host of the Fireside Chat and wonderful CEO of I Raise Girls and Boys. Please do follow her LinkedIn page at Shaniqua E. Moore and her Facebook page at Shaniqua E. Moore as well to stay updated. We go live every single Thursday with interesting conversations such as this, along with guests such as the wonderful Lakeesha Eure that we had here today. We also want to mention that we have a few things that are going on and want you to know about. We have an executive coaching program that our CEO has been doing for some uh, young individuals who have started their own little businesses, and we'll actually be doing a Shark Tank event for them on June 22nd. So we're really excited about them being able to pitch their ideas. We have our Atlanta Rise podcast. So feel free to search for Atlanta Rise podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you go to listen to podcasts. You can also go to our page at iraiseinc.org/podcast. We have plenty of parent workshops that we do. Please take advantage of those, parents. We know it is not easy raising our young people today. There are so many challenges that we're faced with and not quite sure how to approach. So it's great when you can get information from someone, great when you can share with other parents. So go to iraiseinc.org/parents to find out about our workshop and to find out about our parent support group. That takes place online every fourth Thursday. So again, that's iraiseinc.org/parents. Come in there and share and, be able to say what works for you, right? You and your family. So I thank you all again. Have a wonderful rest of the afternoon. If you are in the area where the Canada fires and smoke is affecting your area, please do be safe. Wear your mask if you have to go out. We don't want anyone to get sick from any of those particulates in the air. So just be mindful as you go out the door and as you go through your day. So, Lakeesha Eure, I thank you. It has
Thank
been a
you so much
pleasure.
for having me. I appreciate you.
Same here. We appreciate you and all that you do. So take care, everyone.